Greetings, beautiful ones. I am Miss BJ Martin, and I am sitting in for our beautiful host, Marissa Blurdon, this evening for Sweetheart Before I Say I Do. All right, now let me bring my amazing, handsome co host to the stage, Kevin.
Hey, what's going on?
How are you?
Doing well, very well.
Yes, all right. You know, we got to bring our special guest. We save the best for last. Our special, and this woman is beautiful. And when I say she is the bomb.com, she is the bomb. Let's bring her to the stage. Dr. Levine Show. Hi.
How's
How are
everybody
you?
doing? How's everybody doing?
We
I am
doing well,
flustered. I'm bewildered, but I am here.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much just showing up, not only for yourself, but for us and for everybody else who needs you in the building. Yes, we appreciate that. All right, you guys, before we get started, I just wanted to, first of all, just have a moment of silence, just a moment of silence for all the devastation that's going on in the world, all the devastation that's going on in United States, in our own backyard, the loss of children, the shootings, and just people just losing people every day, and just dealing with everyday life can be a bit much, especially right now. So if we could, just a moment of silence for everybody in the world. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right, we're ready to get it started. We're ready to get it started. We're going to start off with a little bit of discussion about mental health and relationships. So I'm glad you came chimed on in, Dr. Levine, because this is perfect timing. We need you this evening. Because we know intimacy and sex and all that, there's some mental health attached to that as well. And we bring that to our relationships, right? So I wanted to talk about when it comes to mental health and relationships, you have the relationships where people do know that they have a mental illness, right? And then you have those relationships where people don't know. They're walking around undiagnosed, right? With mental illnesses. And for the most part, that's what usually happens. You usually encounter or in a relationship with somebody who has a mental illness, but doesn't know it, right? So I did a little bit of research, I tried to give them a little notes from Psychology Today, and they said that the top three ways mental illness can affect an intimate relationship. Well, first of all, it says that half of adults experience some type of mental health illness. Okay, so out of all of us, well, maybe one of us have had some type of mental illness happen, my situation, right?
Mhm.
And that's high. That's a high number. You know what I'm
Well,
saying? Hmm.
I, I, to be honest, I truly am not surprised at that number. I
Hmm.
mean, I'm sure there's a scale, from severe to moderate to light, because I studied psychology in college,
Hmm.
and I had my own thoughts about, just that notion that so many people do suffer from it, because I know a lot of times in the world we live in that is so driven, meaning work, children, bills, so many things, we never truly have time just to sit down and kind of sort our feelings out. What happens, this is my own belief, a lot of times is that when we suffer certain traumas, maybe a parent dies and we're still trying to make a life for ourselves, and we have to deal with the death of our parent, but we have to keep moving. It's like life keeps driving you. A lot of times that hurt or those traumas become buried, and we don't have time to really reconcile what has happened. And we kind of just bury it and say we'll deal with it another time, and we just keep going and going and going. And a lot of times that happens over and over again. Things hurt us till we reach a point. It's like you can only put so many things in your attic or in your closet before you're not going to fit anything anymore. And I think emotionally, that's usually what happens with mental illness, because we pack away so much hurt. And I tell you, my cousin was a prime example, and we talked about this earlier. He told me one time, we were sitting in the parking lot just hanging out, and he told me he was the guy he was always so much fun to be around. Wherever we would go, we'd always have to go without him. And if we couldn't take him, we wouldn't go. But he told me one day that he was the guy that was always laughing on the outside, but crying on the inside. And when I think about his history of what happened with his father was an alcoholic. They had all kinds of problems. He used to have a great job, lost his job, lost the house they used to live in, and they've been bumming around ever since. And all of that pain, gets buried. And until we get inside of ourselves to expunge what it is, those traumas and hurts, to me, that's where a lot of this sickness comes from, because we never deal with the pain, or at least I should say, we never had the time just to sit down and do that, because life is always driving us forward to keep up with it, So,
yeah. I agree with that. Especially when it comes to women, like, okay, we have that. You got to be strong. And that phrase, you got to be a strong black woman. Got to be a strong black woman. Got to be a strong black woman. I'm like, let's normalize not having to be a strong black woman, because what comes behind that is really a lot of dysfunction, detachment, disconnect to your feminine, your feminine place, your heart. You tend to harden who you are, and that trying to be a strong black woman. And at the end of the day, what do you have to show for that? Heart failure, fibroids, cysts, thyroid issues. You know what I'm saying? So, that's what I have to say about that. Dr. Levon Shaw.
Hey,
and I just say your whole name. I just know the way it sounds.
It's okay. I love it. Listen, May is National Mental Health Awareness Month. And one of the hats I wear, I am a foster parent, and my assignment is for teen moms. And during this and working in this capacity, I have to deal with mental health issues. And it's a lot of traumas that all of us are exposed to, that we sit on that, and we just dealt with it, or we actually tuck it back into the far reaches of our mind, and then something triggers it. So yes, we all are dealing with some type of mental health. That's why I try my best to encourage people to get a therapist, invest in a therapist. People of color, there is no stigmatism with it, that you need to have a therapist. You need somebody to talk to. And a lot of the rules were, when I was growing up, what goes on in this house stays in this house. Well, this has almost killed you mentally, because you're trying to keep stuff in the house. Open the doors and let it out.
Right.
And what is it? Free your mind and the rest will follow.
Right.
And we're just holding on to those traumas, even to the point of, they said don't forget to check on your strong friends, because your strong friends are holding it all together, holding all the pieces, all the balls in the air, and then they don't have time for self-care. And then when they get hurt or they get wounded and all the balls fall, they were like, well, what happened? Nobody was helping you.
Exactly.
Nobody was there for you, because you were taking care of everybody.
Right. And there's that word, strong again. That word strong. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yep.
I was
Exactly.
gonna
And
point that
then
out.
another hat I wear is for a caregiver. And I took care of my grandmother and my best friend, who my grandmother had colon cancer. My best friend had Hodgkin's lymphoma. And then I took on some other friends. People, friends who couldn't stop working and really couldn't handle taking care of their parents would hire me to do private duty. And with that, in healthcare, you're so busy caring for someone else. As a caregiver, if you don't take mental health days and mental rest days, the caring for someone else will kill you first.
Mhm.
One of my
Yeah.
newest clients that I had a few years, this particular couple, I went in to help the wife because she was taking care of the husband, and she just up and died. She up and died. And that Wednesday was her funeral. And I had to come in and make phone calls to the family that the funeral was going to be canceled because her husband, who she was caring for, died that morning of a broken heart. So
Mhm.
then we just decided to do both of their funerals together on Saturday. But
Yeah.
again, the mental health of it, because
Mhm.
her family wasn't there to
Mhm.
help her take care of him. You need to take turns. You need to give the caregiver a break. And I'm talking about you. My father passed away of Alzheimer's. And it took a team of us to take care of my dad. My dad was a virologist. He was a whiz for NIH. And then when he retired from there, he went into um, nonprofit law for financing. And he was a whiz. He just absorbed it and would spit it out, knew how to do it. And to watch him physically
Decline.
die,
Mhm.
right, just
Mhm.
mentally just leave us before
Mhm.
he died physically, it was heartbreaking. My dad was my hero, and just
Mhm.
to see his whole body change.
Yeah.
And the best example I can give you for that is my mother's like, he won't answer the phone. I said, Mom, we have wireless and cordless phones. If he remembers the phone, it's a dial up, it's a rotary dial, and kids don't even know what a rotary dial
No, have
is,
no
right?
clue.
They don't know
Mhm.
what it is. Stick your finger in a dial and put it all the way around and hope you got the right number and
Mhm.
let it go back. They don't know that. So, but that
Yeah.
is mental health on you.
Yes.
Grief is mental health. Grief is real. Just because
Mhm.
you put them in the ground and everybody goes home, it's not over. It's
Right.
not over. You're dealing with that grief. And again, that's mental health. And
Mhm.
it is of the utmost importance that you take time to invest in you and get some help. Even if you think
Mhm.
everything is okay, just go to a
Mhm.
therapist for a little bit and just, I just want to check myself. Guess what they
Mhm.
do? They do a check with you every year at work. They
Mhm.
do their annual check at work. Have you hit this goal? Have you done this goal? Are you doing this? What do you need help in? Da 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 da.
Mhm.
Then if that job is just important to check annually, why is it your mind? Why is it your
Right.
body? Why is it your soul?
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's one of the reasons why I think that, especially with children, that we have to be cognizant of how they're doing because children often don't have the capacity to reconcile certain traumas that can happen to them. And a lot of times, that's why you see we think that children are oh, they're so resilient. Well, they just don't have the ability to reason what has happened. Maybe mom. I think about this story on TV right now. Look at the teacher who got killed. Husband goes, puts flowers on her cross. Then he has a heart attack and died. They have four children. And
Mhm.
it's like, man, all of a sudden now you have four children who have lost both their parents like that.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how old they are, but even if they have other family, maybe they're not at a point right now to be able to handle what's happening. So it may seem like they're handling it or they're getting through it, but believe me, later on down the line, it comes back around because there are things that are finally going to come up. If eventually, I think of the soul like a sponge. it absorbs a whole lot of stuff, a lot of times that we don't deal with, or we may think we're dealing with. But one of the things that you have to have is the time to really sort it all out. Let me tell you something. In my own case, now I've been through situations where I went through a stretch of my life where, boy, it's like the person I am today, and that person, I don't even know who he was, because there were a great number of things that I was dealing with in my life that were just catching up with me. For instance, I told you, like, my parents were divorced when I was like 8 years old, but they were separated when I was 6. And I remember when my mother told me the day, she said, your father and I are divorced. And I remember I was like, it don't matter. Because, it didn't mean anything to me. I was too young to understand what it was I was dealing with. But his absence eventually caught up with me as I began to get older, because that's how it is. When you break what God has designed to be the way things are supposed to be, there is going to be consequence no matter what you do. And it's very tough a lot of times if you don't have the time. And what pulled me out of it is I found the time to just isolate myself from everything else and realize and ask myself a very important question. What's wrong? That's the question I asked myself when I began to look inside of myself and begin to search for answers like, how did I get this way? That's when the journey to being mentally healthy began. It took a long time, but I was able to get on that journey. And I'm glad I am where I am today. And believe me, God had his hand in that as well. Because if I hadn't, I would have been just like any other person out here, just doing dumb things and not knowing why I'm doing it. Because a lot of times these people who are doing these things that they do don't realize that there's something inside, like she used the word trigger, that's triggering a certain behavior that they don't realize because they haven't gone back deep enough to realize that, how did I get to be acting this way? So it's a tough road to deal with. It's very tough to deal with, but it can be dealt with. But it's important that when they're young, you have to really stay on them and understand that we have to watch these children carefully so that they don't grow and start running amok,
Right. And I'm going to share something that I hadn't shared publicly, but we're talking about triggering and mental health. So I remember, like, there was a disconnect with me and my mother, like, when I was around age 11. This is me telling my own personal story. So there was, so years later, I turned around, I have a daughter, my own daughter. And so she's 11. She was 11, the same age that I was when I had to disconnect with my mother. And so she's all, she's a little girl. Little girls are very touchy, feely, huggy, hang on to you, hold your hand, touchy. She's just being a regular little girl as she's supposed to be. Well, because at the age of 11, there was a disconnect with me and my mother. I didn't initially, in being honest, I didn't know how to deal with that. Do you understand? We're talking about triggers and how things, and being a child, how things go all the way back that you deal with, and they wind up coming up later in your life. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm sitting here, I had to think about it. I was like, why am I feeling this? That's the analyzation I came up, with after the fact, that because of that disconnect, I was losing that connection with my daughter. That detachment was coming in because I didn't know mothering, like, at the age of 11 prior to, that's that gap that we had, me and my own mother. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So I'm like, dang, why am I feeling this way? Because I'm like, why is she still touchy-feely? Because I didn't have that. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. So I'm like, thank you to my ancestors, my spirit guides, God, universe, all of the above, for, like, they said to me, speaking to me, like, Brandy, that's my name. Look, that's your baby. As long as she wants to hold on to you and love on you and kiss on you and squeeze on you and drag around your ankles, you let her do that.
Yep.
Love. This is what love. She's showing you that she loves you. That's a normal, I'm going to say, that's a normal mother-child relationship. She wants to hang on to you, sit in your lap, playing your hair, braid it, twist it. Lavon, my girls are. You let her do that. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so I did not go to a therapist. Thank God I had God and those people, people, there's things in my life that, pushed me back on that path. Like, no, baby, this is not what you're supposed to be doing. This is what you're supposed to be doing. And so I'm so thankful because me and my daughter, she's 23 now. We like this. We're like this, like this, like this, like this. Do you understand what I'm saying? And I'm just thankful for that because that could have been another trauma that I'm filling my child with in that cycle going around once again. Do you understand what she's saying? Because she'd have her child when her child's 11 or 10 or whatever age, it could be the same thing. So I'm thankful. I'm so thankful that I am the woman that I am today, because that's just one thing. That's just one thing I've dealt with in my life. We could go on about all kinds of, maybe traumas or mental health things that I've had to deal with in my life. But I am thankful.
But you can say you broke it.
That's right. A lot of stuff. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. You broke
it.
Mm-hmm. A lot of times it's those relationships that early in life that contribute to how we enter into relationships as we get older. Mm-hmm. For some people who desire, because there's something a lot of times when, especially like you take a young girl and maybe she doesn't have a father in the house, but her craving to have that, when she's that young, it's good to have a mom, but she needs a father too. And to have that relationship, excuse me?
That balance.
Yeah,
that balance.
Exactly. And she has to have that father relationship because he's going to set the bar as she gets older about what it is that she's going to deal with what she runs into. Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing with boys.
And what to expect. And what to expect.
And then he's going to help her direct that energy, because we start to develop a type of sexual energy at a certain age. Having a father in a home is going to help her direct that energy into something I'm thinking, more positive or more constructive, instead of her out there trying to take that energy out in the streets and trying to find what to do with this energy. I don't have that balance around what am I supposed to do with this energy that I have. I don't know how to do it. So that's when all the other, the promiscuity and other things start to come into play.
It's funny. I heard, I don't know how to pronounce her name. And Yanya Van Zandt. How do you pronounce her name? I could never pronounce her name.
I don't mean Iyanla Van Zandt.
What is it?
Iyanla Van Zandt.
Yeah,
exactly. I heard
Iyanla Van Zandt.
Yes. I heard her say one time that fathers shape the mind and guide the mind, but mothers shape and guide and direct the heart. And I thought that was a very interesting concept because it seems almost, I've never really looked deep into it, but it sounded so right that I kind of begin to just accept it as that's the way it is, that mothers bring a certain capacity to a child. Just like it takes two parents to make one child, each of those parents nurtures something different in that child. It's like, taking a vitamin, you have all different kinds of things in it. You have minerals, you have vitamins, and mother and father bring several different things that they bring specialized that help form and build that child. Because, a young boy has almost the same relationship with his mother, how he feels about his mother, how he treats his mother, how he views his mother, that paradigm is going to stay with him. And, if he's looking at his mother like a roughneck, well, that's the way he's going to treat women, but if he looks at his mother as someone who's worthy, exactly, he's going to take that with him. And that's so, so, so important to learn when you're a child, that you have to have that relationship. That's why so many of these broken homes, man. And we wonder, well, what is going on in our society? Well, there are a lot of kids out here who are emotionally deficient because dad is not there or mom is not the kind of, because dad's not there. Because
you said emotional deficiency, right?
Yeah,
so,
yeah. Mm-hmm. You need your mother to be a woman who brings a certain capacity to her child, so that especially a boy, that he goes out and when he looks at women, he doesn't see them as just sex objects, because so many of our boys, we don't see a woman in a much broader scope than, like, let me tell you something. When I was in high school, junior high school and high school, that's all boys talked about. Now I understand that's that point where you're going through puberty and everything, and your hormones start running wild. But the problem is that there's no guidance. Like, my dad wasn't in my home. My dad, like I said, my dad was gone when I was 6. And though I knew who he was, he lived in the same town, but he wasn't playing the part of father in my life. So I was just left to kind of like a boat with no rudder. And a lot of times that's how a lot of these children are. Even if they have a mom in the house, the mom is doing whatever she's doing. I used to have a friend, all his mother did was play bingo and go to the bar and all that other stuff, no guidance. And we have to direct these things because these kids are making big decisions with not a lot of resources up here to say, man, I got to protect myself,
Right.
So,
wow. So we're sitting here we're just talking about personal experiences and just talking about mental health on an individual basis, right? And so now we're talking about bringing all of these things into a relationship, and we wonder why so much dysfunction. Oh my goodness. And we're just talking about maybe one or two things that we've dealt with that's just one or two things individually. So if I got two, you got two, and you got two, and you bring that to somebody else that might have 4, that's a lot.
Like they say,
so that's considered baggage.
Yeah,
that's considered baggage that you bring into the relationship. So now you if I have 2 suitcases and you have 2 suitcases, that's 4 suitcases we got to unpack, and God only knows what is in the suitcase.
Right.
So
we haven't opened it yet.
You have to be able to openly love them no matter what is in the suitcase. And a lot of times while you're dating, while you're courting, that's when you're supposed to see if you could unpack some of that stuff.
Right.
And when you start seeing those red flags, don't say I can fix the flag, I can help the flag. No, you can't.
Exactly.
No, you can't.
Yep.
And it's not for you.
Okay, so look, you guys, it says the top. Oh, go ahead, Kevin. I was just going to read.
No, my brother and I were just talking about that.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times there are people who are so hurt, they're looking for somebody who can fix it. And I told him the same very thing. You can't fix it. Meaning someone outside can't come and fix it. But what you can do is deal with it. And that's what it comes from. I've had relationships I destroyed because my own baggage. And it wasn't until afterwards, like, man, I didn't know I was like that. Carrying baggage, And one of them was a long-term relationship. And that was the one I thought at the time was going to work. And it's like I said, it's relationships have a habit of exposing you to yourself if you're cognizant enough to see it. And that's
triggering is. That's what the triggering is with you and that person. Those triggers, all that stuff up for you to see it and to recognize that there's something going on, and there's something that you need to work on within yourself. That's what it's for. Because otherwise, how would you know if you just by yourself all the time? How would you know that you need to work on anything? Because in your own mind, I'm good. I'm good. You by yourself, you're not in a relation with anybody else to reflect to you who you are, what you got going on, right? That's the whole point of relationship.
Exactly.
That is why we need each other. We're not always here to be in long-term relationships. Not all the time. Maybe not with that person. That person may come, or persons may come into your life for that time and that season to show you what you need to see, that you need to work on, that you need to heal so that you can become better for your mate that's coming in. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, very good. And that's something I didn't think of, and that's that may be the way it is. Because before that, I thought I was a great guy, but I found out that you got a lot of stuff in you that you haven't seen that got exposed.
It's a learning curve.
Yes, absolutely. And so when we talk about self-care. Self-care is not, it's not just getting your nails done, getting your toes done, getting massages. No, self-care is honoring your mental health, taking the time to rest, take breaks, learn how to have boundaries, learning how to say no. It's so much more to that than just now pampering yourself. I'm all for it. I'm not saying that's not important. You understand what I'm saying?
Mhm.
But it's all important, right? All important. So you guys, let me just read this right quick. Let me get you guys' opinion on this. They're saying that the three ways mental illness can affect an intimate relationship. Um, Shame. You have a lot of shame, guilt, and resentment. That's the first one. Second one, Dr. Levon Shaw, intimacy problems. Okay. And third, the risk of codependent behaviors. Codependency is an unhealthy relationship pattern that manifests as one partner enabling, Kevin, what you was just talking about, another partner's poor mental health, addiction, or coping strategies.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
so I'll say this, BJ, that I had one couple that I coach. He had never seen his wife naked, and they were like, "What?" She was ashamed of her body, so she wouldn't let him turn on the lights. She never undressed in front of him. So that was an intimacy thing because he wanted to see his wife. He wanted to behold her beauty, and she wouldn't. So that caused a lot of friction in their marriage. Then I didn't have an issue being intimate, but he wanted to physically see her, and it just didn't happen. And that last point, number 3 that you said,
Um,
can you say it again, BJ?
yes, ma'am. Let me put the risk of codependent behaviors.
The risk of codependent behavior comes out in your dating. I watch these kids date now, and they date from, he left my message on read. He read my message and didn't respond to it. And I tell him, you don't have to immediately get a response for something just because you sent a text. If you need an immediate answer, pick up the phone and make a verbal conversation. But because they don't do this as fast as you want, they are now becoming dependent because they need to know where you are, how you are. They got to have your location. They know why are you going south when you should be going north? Don't you have a life? Why are you so occupied with where this person is going?
Wow.
But that is a form of codependency. And
Mm.
that is something traumatic has happened to you, that you were abandoned, that you have got to know everything. Now, I understand being accountable in a relationship, but that's gone too far for and that's codependency.
I
I
like
agree.
that.
And I
Mm-hmm.
think that a lot of times that happens from the time that they're young. When, for instance, if you don't have a parent of either sex that is there to help the child become more balanced and self-reliant, that a lot of times, even in boys, men can be just as dependent. They don't have any direction, and wifey becomes everything under the sun. She does this, she does that, she takes care of me, she buys my clothes, she feeds me, she this, she that.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, it's almost like, you know, I'm not looking for a wife or a partner or a friend. I'm looking for mommy 2.0. And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times that's what happens. Well, a lot of these boys ahead because they never really reach a point of maturity where they become so, how can I say, independent is not quite the word I'm looking for, but have a certain confidence in themselves to realize that, if I'm not with somebody, I'm good. I can still move forward. And I would like to meet somebody. And when I do meet somebody, I'm not bringing a sense that I've got to cleave to you in such a way that you become the fulfillment of what I didn't have a lot of times. So definitely, and then, in these relationships today with these young people who seem like there's so much lack of direction, you have a lot of those types of relationships. those codependent relationships, and it's just like a whirlpool. It's just constantly spiraling down and down and down, because each one is enabling the very thing that continues to keep them in the spiral, but yet helps the other one continue to keep this one in the spiral. So it's just something that's very hard, and there's so many things that we need a lot of work, I guess is what I'm saying. As people in the society, we need a lot of work.
Yeah. And then so we're talking about the young people in the relationships. Well, the young people in the relationships have parents. And a lot of times what the parents have experienced, or our age group or whatever, that we talked about this too in another. I did an interview with the psychologist, the therapist last week for Mental Health Month. And we talked about arrested development. And a lot of times, whatever traumas that say you might have had something very traumatic happen to you at the age of 13.
Yes.
So when you get 40, if you have not dealt with that, your mind, you still have the mind of a 5-year-old. You have not processed, dealt with, or any of that trauma that you did at the age of 13. You have a lot of, and honestly, you have a lot of 40, 50-year-olds who are still 13, 14, 15, 16, maybe even 11, who have, with my situation, could have put it that possibility, right? Who have not dealt with that. We have a lot of grown adults, adulting, paying bills and working, doing those type of things, but mentally, they're still teenagers.
Oh goodness! I mean,
so when
Kevin
was talking, I pictured that the man is a lion. He's a lion walking around, but with a cub mentality.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. There it is. I mean that is like the quintessential problem a lot of times with what we see today. That sense, that state of arrested development. You can only go so far, especially when you're in a home. It doesn't even have to be poor folks' home. It could be middle class or whatever. But when children fail to get the type of nurturing that they need in order to carry them through into adulthood, that is exactly what's going to happen. They're going to grow. They start hitting their teenage years. And after a while, it's like, where am I? I never learned anything more. I never grown and matured inside to be able to take myself further. So, but yet they keep growing. The peers around them are going to college, et cetera, and they're moving right along with them, but they're not moving along in here. And there's a great deal of that going on. A great deal of that.
So if you're still 13 in the mind, you know you're going to be codependent.
Yep. Oh yeah.
You know,
and that's what you're going to look for too.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who's like me, somebody who's in that state of arrested development where we're in the same place. So we just cleave to one another. And, you know, we, in some ways, we continue to fortify that dysfunction in each other.
Right. We both 15, but we 13. So you got these two 13-year-olds in a relationship.
Yep.
Going That's a lot. Now, what about the let's talk about the did you have an example, maybe, Kevin, about the intimacy problems? Dr. LaVon Shaw, she mentioned the situation. Did you know anybody having like an intimacy problem with dealing with mental health?
Well, not quite in that way, but in this way. Mm-hmm. He was very abusive to his girlfriend. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times what he, how can I say this? His inability to handle life in a certain way, she became the target of his behavior. Mm-hmm. All he wanted to do a lot of times was screw her. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to use that word, but have sex with her. Mm-hmm. And, you know, he would always want to do all these kind of freaky things. And, you know, she wasn't always comfortable with it. But she began to wonder, like, why is it like this? Why do you want to get like into all of this weirdness and strange? Well, I don't know if it's strange. Maybe some people enjoy it, but he would really want to get freaky with her a lot of times. But he wasn't working. He wasn't, or if he did work, he only worked sometimes. And then, she became the target of his anger and his abuse. Now, the thing about it is she thought she was helping him. She's going along with what he wants in order to figure like, well, if I'm pleasing him, maybe he won't act this way toward me. But she was really just continuing, keeping him in a place of I want to say it's more than dysfunction because he's actually smacking her around, and that's, but I don't know what was wrong with her because she didn't have the capacity to say that I need to get out of this.
Mm-hmm.
I guess in a way she was just as dependent as he was. But when let me tell you something about guys. When guys hurt inside, there's nothing that will medicate the soul better than sex. We tend to use sex as a way to soothe what pain we can't deal with inside. That's why I see a lot of these times, guys got a perfect life, but he's running around cheating. Like, why? Because, unfortunately, women are, the best course of action when I need to forget about my pain or when I want to forget about my pain. That's why a lot of times you see if a man has a relationship with his wife that he can't talk to her, he'll go tell the side chick, he'll tell her everything. He'll talk to her in a way he won't talk to his wife because she is the soothing agent. His wife is not. Maybe she used to be, but she's not anymore. And a lot of times that's why he feels like, having a woman that I don't have to deal with all of the madness of this life and our life together. All I can do is just deal with her in this capacity. And that's why a lot of times a guy will be with a woman on the side, talk to her, tell her things he won't tell his wife, but yet at the same time, he won't leave his wife for the mistress. And I think a lot of times, that's that's how we go about medicating what we can't deal with. And I think then that other case I was talking about prior to this is that's where he was. He couldn't figure out how to heal his hurt. So he's trying all these other things. He's taking it out on her, physically abusive, sexually. He's, trying to soothe that pain, but it never works. It just never works.
And like you said, Dr. Devon, I'm sorry, go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, no, it's something that nothing is going to deal with unless you take the time to look at it and say, man, something's wrong with me and I've got to find a way to fix it because there's no Band-Aid for the soul. You have to soul search and you have to expunge from your soul the traumas and the things that you are afraid to admit. This is the hardest thing in the world, to face yourself. And I found that out firsthand. It's not easy when you have to look at yourself and say to yourself things that you don't want to say. I failed, especially with men. Men don't ever want to look at themselves as a failure, and they don't ever want to say, I am a failure, because that's the hardest thing under the sun, because it means that for men that we're saying we're not man enough, and no man ever wants to say that. But sometimes you may have to, because that's the only way you're going to get knocked down enough to say, I got to get up. And that's what we have to learn.
That accountability. That's definitely, and that example, that's a codependent relationship all day. The abuser, right? And the abusee, and you here to get slapped, and I'm here to slap you. Just to keep it, you understand? Just to put it in a nutshell. Another prime example of codependency. Wow. As far as intimacy, I was just thinking about something basic, just being in a relationship with somebody that deals with depression, how that would affect the intimacy in a relationship. Because if you're depressed, a lot of times what comes with depression is you don't want to do anything. So if you don't want to do it, if you don't want to get up and clean, if you don't want to get up and shower and bathe, you definitely ain't gonna feel like having sex, uh, with your mate,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Depression kills everything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It kills everything.
And
And
it, it goes for
what it,
a lot of us just think it's the woman, but the men get depressed too and don't
Yes.
want to perform also.
Mm-hmm.
oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I think that's probably one of the worst scenarios is when you do reach a point where, I mean, we can be lightly depressed. I mean, sometimes we go through things,
Mm-hmm.
but when your depression comes to the point where you no longer want to function in any capacity other than what you may have to. I mean, you have to eat, you have to drink. Maybe that's the extent of it, but everything else loses its luster. And that is the point where I think that we have to realize that's when you need help,
Mm-hmm.
when you reach that point. And sometimes people don't recognize it. They think that you're just going through a phase, but it has a big impact on the spouse as well, because if they're depressed, well, sometimes and there's some people out there who will feel like, well, you know what, he won't pick himself up or she won't pick herself up, they won't do this, so that becomes my excuse to decide I want to step this way. And that just adds to the problem, and that we have to realize that when like the Bible says, that in the Bible, it's direct. It says that, I can't remember exactly what it says, but it talks about, you know, people shouldn't be away from each other too long, because that drive is so strong like that, right? So it's like you know what I'm saying? So it's like the same way when somebody's in that zone, it takes its toll on the partner as well, because they're left, kind of like in limbo. We don't know when it's going to end. Depression can go on and on and on and on. If
Yeah,
it's
you
not
can
a
be depressed for years.
it go on a long time, and you
That's
can't leave your spouse. You forget all about your spouse, and you can't leave your spouse in that kind of zone, without getting some kind of help or something. Because after a while, they're going to get tired of it, and I've seen that happen before, where somebody is depressed, and after a while, they figure, I try to get them help. They don't want to work. And then after a while, they say, you know what? I'm done with it. I don't want to deal with it no more. And then they decide to move on,
So I think the passage that Kevin is talking about is where you sacrifice your intimacy only when fasting and praying. But at the end of the fasting and praying, you come together quickly.
Right,
And that's
right.
I use that because people like, well, I'm praying, I'm fasting. But even the Bible tells you don't do that for a long period of time, because you don't want your partner, your spouse, to, just think something's wrong and that they're no longer desired. Again, it's very important that, yes, the women must feel desired, but your partner, your husband wants to feel desired too.
Right.
They want a pat on the bottom. They want you when they walk in the room, you just go, or looking like, I got you tonight. You know how to make them feel desired.
Yes. Yeah. And I wanted to say that let's take a step further than that. This is why we need to be more aware about mental illness and mental health issues, because a lot of times I've seen people saying, oh, well, he's just lazy or she's just lazy. They don't want to clean up. And if this is going on for a while and they don't want to clean up or they don't want to wash the dishes, or it's not lazy. There's something going on. This person is not just lazy. If you don't want to do certain and basic things like talking about bathing often, and I know we always talk about that because that's your hygiene is important. Your hygiene plays a role in your mental health and in relationships, right? It is very important. So we need to get educated on what certain things look like. No, my mate, my husband, wife they're not lazy. She depressed. Or he's depressed or whatever. And we don't know that. You don't know that. You just thinking, well, he's just sorry. Well, It could be something else. Let's learn. Let's get more. Let's get more learned
Yeah.
about mental health or mental illness, and what depression could possibly look like, what anxiety could look like, what these things look like, so that you can be aware and maybe be like, okay, maybe they're not lazy, maybe there is something going on. So how can I, as your mate, help with what's going on? Because I want to make sure, then I want to make sure me that I'm not contributing to your depression, because I could be, because if you're already feeling like crap and I'm on top of that, on your head, making you feel worse, but you're
Yeah.
really dealing with some mental, it's not you just because you're lazy. That's one thing. If you just, let's be real, if you're just lazy, you're lazy. Point blank, period. You don't want to do nothing. You got people that just don't want to do nothing. That's the truth. But you have some people that have some mental illness that they do have. You know what I'm saying? So if you really are in that situation, I, as your mate, want to make sure that I'm not adding to this depression or whatever, mentally, the mental health that you deal with. So I do think that we definitely need to um just get more educated. Not saying that you aren't, I'm just speaking in general. Okay. uh,
Hmm.
that we do need to get more aware of health, mental health, which is why, I'm always talking about it. This is mental health month, awareness month, but I'm talking about it all the time because it's very important. Just like your physical health, we go to the gym, we want to work it out, that your mental health is important too. And then you got to see even that, just get my mind right. You got to get your mind right first to even make the decision to say, I need to go to the gym. It go
Right.
together. You understand? You got to get your mind right, saying, I want to cut out my salt. I want to change my diet. I want to, start doing that. That starts in the mind first. That's your mental. You got to get the mental before you even kind of start walking. Because you got to be like, I'm just gonna do a half a mile a day. I'm gonna walk 15 minutes around my subdivision. That's your mind first. Your body ain't gonna start moving until your mind make up the decision to go ahead and start moving, right? That's your mental health.
And that's why it's important for everything you said. It's important to come into a relationship as healthy and as uh, clear of as much baggage as you can come into a relationship with, because a lot of times, if you're dealing with a whole lot of things, you're not going to have the cognitive ability to realize there's a real problem here. You're going to do just like you said. Somebody's going to say, well, they lazy. They don't want to do nothing, but not recognize, wait a
Mhm.
minute, something is a little different about this. It's not just laziness. There's something else that I can see that tells me that there's something wrong here. And you have to have a clear mind and a clear heart to be able to recognize certain symptoms and signs that may be right under your nose, but if you got a whole lot of other junk going on, you're going to miss it. So it's
Right.
definitely hard, definitely.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Yes,
Definitely.
that work, that doing that work, that self being self-aware, all that
Yep.
is very important, especially that's why I tell people, we talk about that when you're in between, it's good when you're in between relationships to take that time to yourself, to do
Yeah.
some figuring out, like, maybe why didn't the relationship work, and being accountable for whatever role you play in the relationship. You can't be like,
Yeah.
well, I didn't do nothing, it was all them. No, no, because it takes two to tango. You played a part in whatever happened. If you can just start there, just be accountable for whatever you did, and figure out, well, what did I do, what part did I play, give yourself that time, and doing that work. It's always inner work in those periods of being alone, so that you don't have to, maybe attract that in your reality anymore, right?
I always say if you're going to go into a
Doing those,
relationship,
doing those.
you're being 50% guilty already. That's the way I say you should approach it. That if
Mhm.
something goes wrong, the first person you should look at is yourself and say,
Mhm.
okay, how did I contribute to this?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Levon?
Definitely during those time periods alone that you should do this self-awareness. Just a self-awareness check. What's going on? How did I cause this? How can I prevent it from happening again? Again,
Right.
it's always a opportunity to improve yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what I say. The focus is not, the goal is not perfection. The goal is just becoming better, just a better version of you.
Yeah,
And don't
absolutely.
beat yourself up.
No.
Don't beat yourself up. We are so critical on ourselves. How often do we encourage ourselves? Girl, you did a good job.
You
You
did
did a good job.
yes.
You just
Yes.
celebrate the small victories, not just the
Yes.
big ones. Okay, that didn't work, but you handled it different. I didn't cuss him out this time. Just I walked away. I'm good. I'm
Right.
good. So yeah,
Yes.
just
And,
take the
that's
small victories.
major. That's major. Right. Those little we say just getting through, just taking it step by step. Anytime we're just making it day by day. No, we're making it step by step. How about that? Let's simplify it. Don't worry about I made it through the day. I made it step by step, taking my
Yeah,
steps. Yeah.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
good stuff, you guys. Good stuff. It's about that time. We got to wrap it up. I know it's the holiday weekend. Y'all got plans? Everybody got plans?
My
Hey,
kids
it's
want
just
to cook out on the grill, but I said the last storm took out the grill, so what's gonna happen? So we'll work it out.
a plan is to stay under the air conditioner
Yeah, it's
because
hot.
right now it's hot and humid and outside, and all I want to be is under the air conditioner and just
And
relax.
where are you? Where are you, Kevin?
New Jersey.
Jersey. And where are you, Lamar?
I'm in the Maryland, D.C. area, and it's a
Okay.
storm of brewing. I mean, it's thunder and lightning
Yeah,
behind me.
the
It
same
was
one
one so
we got.
loud.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
how it
It
was.
looked like it was
I'm in
coming through the
Atlanta.
window.
That's how it was yesterday. It
Mhm.
poured down, poured down. I was like, man, but it's hot today. Hot out there today. So yeah, I don't have any plans as of right now, but I could eat. So anybody wants you can
Who
hit
was
me
the
at my
one?
DMs.
Who was the one that made the tortillas and was that you?
Oh, no,
Who
that
was
was
that?
that was one of our guests we had. That was a few episodes
Oh
ago.
man, she was talking
The
about those things, and I was thinking like, oh man,
what's like the
that's-
empanada lady or the tortilla lady, something she called herself. I
yeah.
can't remember.
Oh,
Yeah,
send me
I
that number.
remember.
I need to know that.
Yeah, we got to go back. You're gonna have to go back on the channel, on Marissa's channel, go back and find her. Dang, because
I
I don't
Okay,
remember.
know.
I will. I will. So I'm
I
gonna
don't
And
remember.
she
publicly
said
do
she
a challenge.
delivers too.
Okay.
Kevin was going about some things that were dirty, that were nasty. So let's do an adult content show, and let's figure out what's dirty and what's nasty, because and just have him share with us, because some things that are unfamiliar
Mm-hmm.
are just different and not
That's
necessarily dirty or nasty. It's
right.
just that you don't know about it,
Right.
so
Your freak level
I
might
would
be
love to
down
do a
here,
show.
and they freak level might be up here.
Yeah. So I just would love to do a show about that one day, just
Yeah,
to
Well,
that'll
see
be
what's
nice.
up.
hey, I'm game for it.
Yeah,
That'll work.
So
That's right. Yay. We are adults here. We are adults. This is a 40 plus club. I know. 45 plus. I know. 47 plus. I know. So we can do this. Absolutely. We definitely need to make sure Marissa is in the building, because how she be. I was like your teeth out. You better not do that. You know that. But we love you, Marissa. We miss you.
and miss you, and we miss you.
Yes, yes.
but
So
yeah, someday whenever y'all want to do it, let's do it.
All right, we'll do the research and we'll hop on it. I love it. I
yeah,
love it.
that's gonna be fun. That's gonna be fun. We might have to come on. We might have to come on later. We might have to come live later. Talking dirty after dark. All right, you guys. So we're gonna have to wrap this up. We've been in for an hour tonight, y'all. This is good, great
Okay.
conversation, amazing
It
show.
was.
I
It was.
enjoyed the
All right,
input.
ladies, I enjoy being here with you every week. So it's a pleasure
Yes,
to be here with you.
we're here. So anybody want to make any closing statements, or where we can find? Yeah,
No, it was
everybody's
good.
all right. Well, I just want to say thank you for taking time to watch the show. Thank you for taking that time. We appreciate you. And like, share, and subscribe. I'm gonna say that. Please like, share, and subscribe. Get the word out. Because this is an amazing panel. These are amazing people, and they're all doing some amazing things. And I mean, we're here like every weekend, so we care. We care about men and women. We care about relationships. So if we're here, we're showing up for ourselves, and showing up for you too. So that's all I have.
All right. Everyone take care.
All right.
Ladies.
We love y'all. You have an amazing weekend.
All right. Love you too.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.